Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritam Gamaya Avir Maedhi Rudrayate Dakshinangamukam Te Namam Pahi Nityam. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourself, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Let us sit quietly a few moments and meditate on the Supreme Spirit in any way we please.
রিভার্বটা কেটে দিন। রিভার্ব
Bhadram karnevi shrunuyama devaha Bhadram pasyemakshbhiryajatraha Stirairangaistushuvagam sastanubhihi Vyasema devahitai yadayuhu. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies the life allotted to us. Oh, thank you, thank you. There is something in science, in physics particularly, that is called the theory of everything. I mean, it's more or less a humorous description. But this is the attempt in science is to find that one thing by which everything else can be understood, that one fundamental concept, knowing which every other concept is approachable, is analyzable. And of course, they haven't fully managed to do that, but that is the attempt, but that also is the attempt in spirituality and religion. So many different religions are there, so many different ways of expressing that inner human urge to master everything, to understand, to reach, to attain everything. It's built into us, we can't help it. We want everything. What do you want? What do you really want? The answer is, I want everything. Whatever can be aspired for, that's what I want. At one time or another, I may be expressing a particular thing, or I may be interested in studying a particular thing, concentrating on a detail, concentrating on particularity. But what we really want is everything. We really want that knowing which everything else is known. And that desire was expressed in the Upanishads, in the Mundaka Upanishads, in the famous question that starts the Upanishad. The teacher goes, the student goes to the teacher, and this is how all students go to all teachers. Whatever they're studying, whether they're studying science or philosophy or religion, spirituality in some way, or if they're studying music or art or whatever it is they're studying, what they're after, if they're really students of great intensity and great dedication, they want to know everything connected with that area that they have approached, that particular study that they have engaged in, that particular expertise that they've tried to obtain. They want the whole of it. Everything that is to be known by that, that's what we want. So this statement at the beginning of the Mundaka Upanishad, Kasmin nu bhagavo vigyate, what is that, O Lord, meaning the teacher he's addressing. What is that? Knowing which, vigyate, sarvam idam, all of this, vigyatam, has been known. Really, it doesn't say is to be known, but if I know this one thing, I want that one thing which will give me access to everything. And that's a reflection of our own inner nature. What religion basically tells us is that we are limitless beings. We are infinite, we are eternal. At this point, we may be conscious only of a small lighted circle which we can see around us, our present existence, our present circumstances. We're terribly worried about this. But if we're totally satisfied in our questions about the immediate surroundings, immediately our mind and our spirit goes to learn what is it outside of this limited circle that I'm now aware of. What is that? How can I know that? Not only what is within my reach, but also that which surrounds it. So inherently we know what is eternal, and we know that everything really is eternal, because we're never satisfied. And that is an indication that what we're after is the totality, that we acknowledge the existence of an infinite expanse. Nothing is really limited. This is, of course, understood in nowadays, understood in the study of science as well, in the study of physics. For instance, there's no real limit to anything. You cannot put a boundary to anything. That's quite logical. As soon as you put a boundary on something, you're automatically at the same time stating that there is something inside the boundary which I want to know, and there's also something outside the boundary. So whatever limits we put on ourselves, are an expression of our understanding, our deep conviction that whatever limits we may put, there's always an infinite space still beyond. And what is that? So that was the basic question that was formulated in this Mundaka Upanishad. Today we're talking about two enormously influential beings that grace this earth and enabled us to approach this basic question. And Buddha and Shankaracharya. Now, how you can put both of these in one lecture, I've tried to figure out. But I'll make an attempt at it. I mean, it requires a lifetime to study either one of them and to express the two of them within the space of 55 minutes or so is quite an ambitious undertaking. And the first thing that we have to understand is that also part of our general human condition is that we will never be able to answer that question to our full satisfaction. So how is it? Why do we approach questions? Why do we ask questions if we have an idea that ultimately, really, we're never going to be fully satisfied, no matter how detailed, how extensive the answer we attempt to give? Because this shows, again, it's a reflection of our own infinite nature. Because we are basically the infinite, there is no limit to ourselves. Can we find a limit to ourselves? Where is it that I am not? Wherever I look, I see something, or I experience something, and there's some contact somewhere. That means my personality is out there also. There's no limit. We cannot find a limit to ourselves. And that is the answer that religion gives us. We are unlimited. There is no, the more we try to narrow the focus, the more we try to constrict the view, the more we understand that it's impossible. That whatever we try to constrict, we try to limit ourselves to a certain area, and we will only discuss that. We expect answers only in that. It's impossible to expect answers to everything. But that itself shows us that we will never be satisfied with that which is not infinite. It is only when we admit the infinity, the existence of this unlimited, that we can achieve some satisfaction. So how is it that any answer can be given at all? What is given, the final answer that is given, is that the finite itself is seen to be no longer finite. We are the infinite and the eternal, and deeply inside we know it, and we can never be totally satisfied with the finite. If I give you an answer to a question, that will always give rise to another question. What is outside that? That shows us that our reach has no limits, is boundless. Now, Buddha is one of those beings that has manifested on this earth in as pure manifested infinity on this earth in as pure a way as possible. And, of course, all the great beings who are considered incarnations have that characteristic. That is what is not, I wouldn't say totally realized. I don't know if anyone can totally realize this, but it is very much intuited and becomes ever more obvious the more we study their lives, that these great souls are manifestations of that infinite which is our own nature, but manifest in front of us in an extraordinarily clear way, which we can admire and try to emulate. Now, what are the facts that are known about Buddha's existence on earth? Many things are disputed, many things are unclear, but certain dates can locate us a little bit. Of course, all these dates are again subject to question, but generally, many people will acknowledge this. Buddha's birth is figured to be, at least this is one presentation, 563 BC. His, as a result of his great inner yearning and as a result of several incidents that we will discuss, his strong focus on the basic question of life, what is the meaning of everything, began in 534 BC, that is to say at the age of 29. The enlightenment, the conclusion, or let's say the culmination of his spiritual practices occurred. Now, these dates are just one version. There are many disputes about these dates. Enlightenment is said to have occurred at 528 BC at the age of 35, and his final departure from this world, nirvana, is said to have occurred, at least in this version, 483 BC at the age of 80. So that is the basic life span that we are discussing. But there are many things associated with that of course it's in 80 years of life and a tremendous body of literature that has arisen as a result of that life, and a tremendous world movement that has manifested because of that. In just a few minutes, we're not going to be able to discuss this or even exhibit it fully, but this chronology between 563 and 483 BC, before the time of Christ, gives us the basic area that we're discussing. Now, he was born a prince, and these are the traditional description is that he was born up in luxury. His father had been told by soothsayers, by wise people who usually are invited when a new prince or princess is born, to give a prognosis of what that life would look like. And his father was told that this boy, once he saw the darker side of life, would refuse to stay in his palatial environment and would renounce it and devote himself to the realization of that reality which transcends everything that is changeable. So the father made every effort that the boy would never have any contact with the darker side of things. So the people who had troubles were kept away from him. He was kept in a very secluded, protected environment within the palace. But one day he asked his charioteer, the person who would drive him around this vihara, this area where he, this pleasure garden, you could say, and who was actually his companion and his friend. He asked him to drive him through the town, the nearby town. And the friend did that, and as they went through the town, they saw several sights. One was of a person who was sick. Somehow, body was ailing, body was troubling, something that the prince had never seen. So he was shocked to see a person in that condition. And so he asked his charioteer, is this an unusual circumstance? And the charioteer said, no, this is everyone at some time or other has to go through this sort of process. Oh, really, is that so? Then he saw a sick person, he saw a dead body being taken to the cremation ground. Oh, what has happened to that person? Well, he is dead. His life is gone. And the body will be burned. Oh, is this the only example of this? Or does that happen to others also? No, Lord, everyone is destined for that. That is how life ends for everyone. Oh, really, is that so? So a sick person, a dead body, and then he saw an old person on a stick trying to somehow manage. What is wrong with that person? Is he suffering? Is he unhealthy like this other person that I saw? No, he's not unhealthy, but this is weakness of old age, which comes eventually to everyone. Oh, really? Is everyone subject to that? Yes, everyone is subject to that. So by now, his whole view of life had crumbled in a whole new scenario. Oh, we must find an answer to this. Then he saw a fourth person. He saw a spiritual mendicant. He saw a monk going about in the street and begging his food. Who is this? He looks so inspired. He looks so elevated. Then the charioteer again told him, yes, he has given up all these transitory things. He is in the world, but not of it. He has his ambitions, his thoughts, his desires, his aspirations are not connected with that, and with that which is transitory. He is he is concentrating on that. He has devoted himself to the attainment of that which is eternal, which is non-decaying. And being devoted to that, he wants to become, he is intent on becoming that. And with that knowledge and with that hope and with the fact that this has come before, this has been done before, there is a path that leads to that. He has started on that path. So immediately Buddha his mind became transfixed on that ideal. And when he came back to the palace, he made up his mind that that is what he wanted. All this that he had been shown for all the life that he remembered was only going to lead to one of the other three states. So he said, what is the point of that? And then his whole attention shifted, and he told his charioteer that he was going out of the palace in search of that which is unchangeable, in search of that which is unalloyed bliss, of that which is happiness eternal. And that is the great renunciation which has inspired spiritual aspirants of all types. It's not that everyone goes out and, abandons everything in a literal way. But the idea is that the attention should be on that which is permanent and not on that which is temporary. That which is temporary should have temporary attention. We need certain things, and that is, we should strive for that. No doubt we should strive for that. But the basic lesson is that has its own department which has to be followed, which has to be, we have to engage in that. But the basic thing is, which should never be forgotten, that at the heart of everything that changes, there is something which never changes. That is the basic lesson that all religions convey. They express it in so many different ways, but the idea is always the same. That which is around us, that which is immediate and available and obvious, is surrounded by something which is not so obvious, but which is totally fundamental to everything that is obvious. Everything that changes is built, is founded on a rock which never changes, which has never come into existence and can never go. That is our own inner reality. That is the essence on which this apparent personality that we manifest in this world, our apparent personality, our apparent reality, is based on something which is deeper within, is founded, is constructed on something which is unchangeable, which has never come into existence and which can never disappear. It was never created, and therefore it can never be destroyed. And in our very inner nature, that is the reality that our existence is built on. We don't feel that because we're only looking at the surface of things. But the whole idea of spiritual life, the whole idea of meditation, of prayer, of selfless service, whatever practice you are undertaking, the whole idea of that is to discover that reality which never changes, which is the foundation of everything that does change. That is the message of all spirituality, and that is the message of these four incidents in Buddha's life. Of course, he lived for 80 years, and I can only talk about him for another, 1 or 2 minutes, because we have to study Shankaracharya also. So when we study Buddha's message to the world, it is that is the message. His own life is the message, which is this is the message of every spiritual teacher. The basic message of every spiritual teacher is his own life. It is by studying the life of these great souls that we can get the inspiration to follow them, to live our lives in that same fashion. Now, when we talked about Shankaracharya, again, the same historical uncertainty exists. The dates of his life are quite in dispute. Scholars will argue much about the details, but generally the date that's mentioned, although it's not accepted by everyone for the, but still it's generally mentioned. He was born according to this version, in 788 AD after Christ. And he passed away at the age of 32 in 820. So in those 32 years, he accomplished an absolutely remarkable amount of results. First of all, when he was just a boy, I think about 8 years old or so, he went in search of his spiritual teacher and became a monk at that early age, and studied under his teacher, studied the Upanishads. And by the age, or some very early age, he had written commentaries on the Upanishad. He had achieved a spiritual wisdom himself, and using that wisdom, he wrote his extensive commentaries on the Upanishads. I think it's about 10 Upanishads that are generally considered to have been commented upon by him. And in doing that, he established the basic principles of what is now the Vedanta philosophy, and established actually the Upanishads as Vedanta. Before that, you could say the Vedas were usually in sacrifices, in ceremonials, the Vedas were followed. But the Upanishad, the emphasis on the Upanishads themselves, he reinforced that as being the essence, as being the heart of what the ancient spiritual tradition was supposed to teach, to signify. So he developed the philosophy. His teacher was Govindapada, and Govindapada's teacher was Gaudapada. Gaudapada was one of the famous commentators on the Vedic scriptures, and he emphasized that the non-dual path, the basic meaning of the Vedas, was that non-dual reality, which is what is now considered the Vedanta, the basic foundation of all Hindu doctrine and scripture. So not only that, he traveled all over India. He went, and of course in those days, nowadays you can do it very nicely. In 2 hours you can go from Chennai to Calcutta to Delhi. You can do all that. You can just hop, skip, and jump all around the country. It's just wonderful. And you can be comfortable while doing that, while watching the country below pass below you at 500 miles an hour. You're just nicely going from one city to another. In those days, he went on foot. One Raja, I think the Raja of Kashi, Varanasi, offered him a chariot. He was so impressed with his teaching. So he said, no, pade dvayam, my 2 feet I will use to go wherever I need to go. And he went around the whole of India, 1,500 miles here, 1,500 miles there, a number of times, founded 10 monastic orders, of which our present order, Ramakrishna order, is a part of one of the Shankara orders, particularly the one headquartered at Sringeri in the south in Karnataka. But all these 10 different orders, and not only that, he formulated the basic principles of worship that are used in most Hindu temples. So it was not just philosophy, it was not just theory, it was the daily life, the daily circumstances that he had under his, that he had taken under his purview. So these are these 2 individuals, Shankaracharya and Lord Buddha. You could say that they mark the spiritual landscape of India. And what are the basic lessons that we should draw from them? Probably the prime lesson is that spirituality is real. That what we experience, our normal life, our normal circumstances, are underlain or are supported by something far deeper, far greater, far more extensive. Our present existence seems to float on the surface in so many different ways. We're interested in this, we're interested in that, we hope for this, we hope for that, we strive for this, we strive against something else. All of these things deal with the particulars. But all these particulars of what we should do, what we should not do, what we should be, what we should not be, are underlain by a reality which never changes. And everything that's on the surface, what we call the do's and don'ts, what we should do and should not do, all these regulations and all these methods of life, methods of behavior, the things that we strive for, the things that we strive against, the we ourselves who are doing the striving, everything is based on a reality which is given so many names. It is called God, it is called the infinite, the eternal. it is called Brahman, it is called Atman, whatever name you give it, there is at the heart of everything that changes, at the heart of our life, at the heart of our existence, there is an unchanging reality. And what is the purpose of our life? To experience that. To experience, rather than to see the changes on the surface, to experience the reality that is at the heart of everything that changes. All these great teachers, their main message is that what is on the surface is an appearance and has to be paid attention to. It's part of our existence. It's part of the way of who we are and what we do and where we go and where we have been. But all of that changes. In our heart, there is something that never changes. You can call it God, the infinite, the eternal. You can call it Brahman or whatever name you give it. At the heart of everything that changes, there is something which does not change. And when we sit for meditation, that is what we're looking for. Just a touch of that and the dedication to experiencing the reality of that. That is the message. That is the message of Buddha, of Shankaracharya. They put it in totally different ways. One can argue a great deal about whether the teachings of Buddha and of Shankaracharya are really headed to in the same way, doing and accomplishing the same thing. But if you look at the heart of it, rather than the superficial details, you find that they are aiming for something which does not change. And something which does not change cannot be two. There can be only one such thing that underlies everything. So that is the message, that whatever it is we do, whether we meditate or study or karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, jnana yoga, whatever we do, the purpose is always that, to reach the unchangeable, the totally satisfying. That is the message of religion, and that is what we are supposed to learn, whatever we do in this area, whatever we do in this field. The subject next Sunday is the mother ideal in Hinduism, part 2, the second installment of a series of lectures. This talk will be given by Swami Vedananda. There will be no Sunday evening online class on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy this week. The class will resume on May 21st. On Wednesday evenings, we have Vespers with meditation at 7:30 in this auditorium. On Friday evenings, Swami Vedananda holds a scripture class at the Old Temple at 7:30 p.m. Please use the auditorium entrance on Filbert Street. The current text for study is the Bhagavad Gita. The class is also streamed on YouTube and on Facebook. After the lecture today, there will be a Karma Yoga meeting in Swami Vivekananda Hall on preparing for our Memorial Day retreat at Olima. We are not having a public program this year, but just a 2-day retreat for our members and friends. If you are interested in attending this retreat and are not on the Society's email list of members and friends, please leave your name and email address with one of the ushers. We look forward to everyone's participation at this meeting after the lecture. Your cooperation in wearing a mask is greatly appreciated. If you would like to make an offering, a collection plate will be available on the cart at the door as you exit. There is also a mounted offering box near the auditorium door in the foyer. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all our services. Om Dhyauhu Shantihi Antariksham Shantihi Prithivi Shantihi Apo Shantir Oshadaya Shantihi Vanaspataya Shanti Vishve Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Sama Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is in the sky, on the earth and in the waters. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite, universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.